We've got details of these and more coming up shortly. Stay with me. Grateful for your company this morning. My name is Joshua Kujo-Mensah. The details now. And the ECOWAS Committee of Chiefs of Defense Staff has converged in Accra for an extraordinary meeting to, among others, finalize plans for the deployment of the standby force for the restoration of constitutional order in the Republic of Niger. It is a follow-up, rather, to the directive of the ECOWAS Authority of Heads of State and Government at its extraordinary summit on the political situation in the Republic of Niger held on the 10th of August 2023 in Abuja, Nigeria. The regional bloc is seeking to use every means necessary to restore democratic rule in Niger after the presidential guard in that country launched a coup and detained President Mohamed Bazoum and his family on July 26. This is the fifth successful military coup in Niger since its independence from France in 1960. Now, the two-day meeting of the ECOWAS chiefs from today forms part of the activation of the ECOWAS standby force for the restoration of constitutional order in Niger. Now, still on the situation in Niger, we know security expert and consultant Colonel retired Festus Abuaji maintains ECOWAS has no basis for launching a military attack on Niger. According to him, most ECOWAS leaders do not have the moral and legal right to support such an intervention. He's, however, been shedding some light on what to expect at the security chiefs meeting.
Military chiefs don't declare war. They act on executive political decisions. Is part of civil-military relations. So what they come into Accra to do is basically come and develop a military campaign plan, the campaign plan for going to Niger. So the size of the force, the structure of the force, let me use our own indigenous, indigenous art of warfare, the Nifa and the Benkum, Konti, Chidom, those kinds of things. Who goes by air, who goes by land, within which axis, and so on and so forth. The timings, and so on. The size of the force, for instance, the number of ground forces, air forces. There will be naval forces probably moving, some of these personnel and resources by sea from other ECOWAS countries, let's say to Benin or to Nigeria. That is what they come in to work on.
Right.
But in that planning that we call the estimate process, they also assess risks. They assess the freedoms that they can exercise in executing the military campaign plan and the risk, call it the obstacles, that could jeopardize the military option. So when they present their report, their plan to the ECOWAS Mediation on Security Council, which turns out to be all 15 members, now left with 11, they will point out to the political principles what the risks are in going to Niger. They should do that because it's part of their professional, mandate. Not to just go and present a plan, and not point out to the political principles what the risks are. So that's what I expect to see. Indeed, my sense is that Ghana is no longer the chair of ECOWAS. But the practice of ECOWAS, when you are chair, you are like Okwanansi. Your son is this, your nephew is that. So the chief of the armed forces of Nigeria is the head of the Committee of Chiefs of Defense Staff and other security services. They should have been sitting in Lagos, Abuja, wherever. Now, why are they coming to Accra? Because there is this notion that this whole enterprise of going to Niger is a Tinubu agenda under Western pressure. So you we deflect a bit of that and get Ghana into the equation. And Ghana, for that matter, historically, is a respectable member of the international community.
All right, so let's get some updates from that meeting of the ECOWAS security chiefs in Accra, Ghana. And my colleague Joshua Nanakwame, he's with the security desk and he's been monitoring that meeting. He's joined me on phone for more on that. So Joshua, we know the meeting has started. What can you report from that extraordinary meeting?
Well, thank you. So I'm very much as expected, the meeting where many were wondering what exactly it would be. But let me just give you some of the words of the speakers that spoke, that we are not up for war. And this is the words of the Chief of Defense Staff for the Nigerian Army, General C.J. Musa, and he indicated that it is best that we find an amicable way to resolve the crisis in Niger. However, in the opening remark by the Chief of Defense Staff of Ghana, Vice Admiral Seth Amwama, he indicated that it has become imperative, considering the coup d'etat and the litany of insurgencies that we are seeing within the regional bloc, it has become imperative for the ECOWAS, so that is the ECOWAS Committee of Chiefs of Defense Staff, to actually identify and further broaden the scope of how we address issues relative to coup and military rule that is toppling what one would describe as a legitimate constitutional rule. But then again, one that stood out was the words of the Ambassador Abdul Musa. He's the Commissioner of Political Affairs and Peace and Security. So, Joshua, these were his words, and he stated categorically that the ECOWAS will use all means available to restore constitutional order in Niger. Those were such strong words that he used. And when he actually indicated, you could tell from the faces of the others that were seated there that, well, it didn't come out as expected, because the other speakers, that is the first speaker that addressed, gave the opening remarks, CDS, that is the Chief of Defense Staff of Ghana, Vice Admiral Seth Amwama, his words were very calm. His words were very assuring. His words were very encouraging the high-ranking security staff over there that, look, let's bring all together our rich minds and resources to find a better way. We don't want to war with our brothers. But then again, and also the Chief of Defense Staff of the Nigerian Armed Forces also came in with his words, General C.J. Musa. And he said that the path that the ECOWAS Committee of Chiefs of Defense Staff is taking is not an easy one. Okay. No one wants to create or unnecessarily burden the civilians or the citizens in Niger with any coup. But this was where things or the tone shifted when the Commissioner of Political Affairs, Peace and Security, Ambassador Abdul Musa. And let me just say today that this is the second meeting within 2 weeks that they have actually sat together to devise means. And as we indicated earlier, this is only a military campaign plan. And what it's supposed to look at is how best we can address the issues, where we get to rally and then also highlight the strength of our forces, the size of our forces, the structures, and also the aspects that we may also be looking at. Then incorporate into that what they describe as the risk or hurdle that they would have to consider, and the amount of freedom that will be assigned to the deployment, as well as when the plan is complete, it will be submitted or subjected to the ECOWAS mediation on Security Council, and they would admit it and also now consider the 2-day plan, what it's supposed to be. Many are thinking that after today's meeting, we are ready to go for war. When I say we're talking of the member states of ECOWAS, but that is not what it says here. But then again, they are also saying, when I say they, I'm talking about the Committee of Chiefs of Defense Staff, they are also resolute that, look, we are going to get a chance to diplomacy and political engagement with the military junta in Niger. However, considering, in the words of Ambassador Abdul Musa, the process in Niger are playing cat and mouse game with ECOWAS, and that they find very, very unsettling, and they are resolute that they are actually going to meet the response that they would get head on, and that might actually mean that there's going to be a full force
Okay.
To resolve and restore the country back to its constitutional order.
Very well. Joshua, thank you. Keep monitoring, and we'll get back to you in subsequent bulletins. Thank you. That's Joshua Nana Kwame Ayura. But let's get a conversation going on this particular development. The tone has been set. ECOWAS would explore whatever means it has to restore democracy in Niger. Let's speak to Prosper Ni Ado. He's a security analyst. He's joined us on Zoom. Prosper, thank you so much for joining us. So what do you make of this stance by ECOWAS to use whatever means necessary to ensure that we restore democracy in Niger, even if it includes a military intervention?
Well, in security terms, you have what you call speech act. And so when you say something, it's tantamount to you carrying it out. And it is one thing to say it and another one to be able to do that. And so if this is the decision that is being made, well and good, that's what ECOWAS intends to do. But like we're saying, you would notice that the conditions on the ground for such an intervention has not been that favorable over these past few weeks. In all the analysis we've been doing and the observations we've been making, here are people, military junta in power, supported by the people on the ground. Mm-hmm. Even if not all, everybody in the country, they have majority, some level of followership on the streets and all that. And what are their sentiments? The anti-colonialism, anti-imperialist kinds of notions, the things they write on the placards. So that simply tells us that while coups are not justifiable and should not be encouraged, we should also be doing something to ensure that things that lead to it are addressed. When we do that effectively, we wouldn't get to where we are currently. Right. And again, if we put in place military action, military plan and all that, technically, it's going to be some West African countries against the others, because it's not a democratically elected government which is in power. It's a military government.
Right. And
they form coalition based on the coup. And so they're going to be really meeting a very strong force, and it's not going to be that easy. Eventually, if they are able to deploy, civilians will suffer.
So as it stands now, the security chiefs are meeting in Burma camp as we speak, and there's been a lot of conversations surrounding exactly what the expectations from that meeting would be. We heard from Colonel Festus Abaji, retired. He mentioned that they are only going to fashion out how to deploy if it comes to the fact that we need to now deploy people to Niger, troops to Niger. But what would be your expectation of this meeting?
So they are going to discuss all the plans, like you had your head of security desk mention. Mm-hmm. Even the rhetoric within the chiefs of defense staff is mainly towing diplomacy. Okay, because it is one thing to want to go and fight your neighbors, and another one to really go and do it. Mm-hmm. There will be so many implications as a result. Okay, and so I'll repeat. Currently, as we stand, whichever means ECOWAS wants to use is left with ECOWAS.
Right.
But here and now, from the analysis we've made, it's going to take dialogue. You can use the traditional leaders. You can use whichever track of diplomacy, but you have to engage these leaders and talk them out of handing over power. It may take 6 months. It may take a year. There's need for some transition.
Okay. Prosper, thank you. Thank you so much for engaging with us on this development. So let's turn our attention a bit from Niger and talk about what is happening here. And in that sense, let me take you to the Bank of Ghana, because the Member of Parliament for North Tong, Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa, has uncovered a balloon in the coast of the new Bank of Ghana headquarters building from an initial amount of $81 million to the present $250 million. The lawmaker further alleged that one of the construction firms picked through single source PPA for the project is not a registered company in the country. Mr. Okudzeto Ablakwa also alleged that another company was granted a PPA approval for project management services 3 months before the said company was registered. Now, in his tweet on August 17, 2023, Mr. Blakwa disclosed that contrary to claims by some NPP communicators, including the party's Director of Communications, Richard Ahiagba, the said project did not start in the erstwhile Mahama administration. So we've been privileged to be joined on the phones now by the Member of Parliament for North Town, Samuel Okudzeto Blakwa. Mr. Blakwa, good morning. Welcome to Newsroom.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for having me.
Great. So you say you've uncovered all these things. Does it come to you as a surprise then?
Surprise is an understatement. I am in utter shock.
Right.
I can't believe the discoveries that I am making on this matter. A project which began at a cost of $88 million. Pardon me, $81.8 million.
Right.
$81.8 million in January of 2020 by the Bank of Ghana's own assessment, its own scope of works, its own estimate. Nobody put a gun to their head. Their own analysis is upon which they wrote to the Public Procurement Authority on the 14th of January 2020, seeking approval